Hello and welcome to Evolve by Erica, the podcast where we talk about all things spirituality, meditation, health, wellness, and beyond. I'm so excited to have you here. Come on in. Hi, guys, and welcome to
Hi.
another episode. I'm so excited to introduce the guest who I have on today, Christine Lopez. So, Christine and I go back years at this point. We aligned on Instagram. And I feel like in the beginning of my journey, I met a lot of soul friends through Instagram, other people who are practicing Kundalini and in this spiritual world. And we connected and we just like instantly hit it off. She's doing such incredible things in the world right now. And I can't wait for her to share her story with you and how she got to what she's doing now. I know that you guys are going to love what she's doing and wanting to tune into it. So, welcome, Christine, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So
It really
nice.
is.
And we, it was so exciting because, as I shared before, we met on Instagram and then we were able to actually get together in real life and connect when I
Yeah.
visited California. We went to a Kundalini class together. We went to Guru Jagat's class together.
Her last
Wow.
class.
That was her
Wasn't that her
last
last?
class?
Wait, no,
Was it?
that wasn't her last class. No, that was
No.
another friend talking about her last class. No, but it
No,
was
yeah, that was wild now that I think of it. And in that class, I'll never forget. I was so excited to take Guru Jagat's class. I've heard so much about her. I was so excited for what practice we would do, and she chose Nabi Kriya, which was my 40-day Kriya for when I trained. And if anyone knows Nabi Kriya, you know you don't really get excited for that one. But I was like, okay, if Guru Jagat's telling us we need to do it, it must be for a reason. And it was very, very powerful. So powerful.
it was.
So I just want to hear, I want you to introduce yourself, share a little bit about your story, how you got into Kundalini, and just about you.
So I actually, it's a funny thing. Like my original time getting into Kundalini, I didn't connect it until like years later.
Cool.
When my very first time doing Kundalini was when Layla was a baby. I have an 8-year-old daughter, Layla, and I was living in Beverly Hills, and I was like not on the path at all at the time. I was just kind of like this single mom, kind of like just trying to find some yoga that I could just take my kid because I was like, I had this baby. And so there was in my neighborhood Yoga West. It's no longer called Yoga West. I think they changed the name now. And I would see the Kundalini people like with their garb and all the turbans, and I was like, okay, this is a little weird, but they let you have kids. And so I go in, do the class, and I was going to this class consecutively for like 5 months every week and forgot about it. And then years later, I did the Elevate the Globe. I met Britt and Tara,
Yeah.
and I liked their energy. And then I ended up doing their Rise Up program. And
Nice.
so during that program, because it's like a couple of months or something, I don't remember how long, like 9 weeks or something. During that time, I was a victim of the Woolsey fires.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was moving. So our house was like in the fire zone for like days. And so we had like excessive smoke damage. But the one thing that I did every day during that time was I was like on the rise up. Like I was like
Mhm.
not letting that go. And I didn't have any practice before that, but I just knew like intuitively that that was something that was going to get me through that process. And so I was getting up, I was like moving from hotel to hotel every 2 or 3 days. We lived in 10 hotels in like 2 months. And just like really sticking with it. And I just had this life-changing experience from the practice and just incorporating the Kundalini yoga. And my testimony of Kundalini is based on my own experience of how it changed my life and pretty much saved my life at the same time, because the magnitude of what I had pressurized on me my career ended up changing. I call it my re-ravel, because like after that, my career of 10 years, very highly paid career, ended. Everything kind of stopped financially, and I was in a space of where I had to really have faith. And the Kundalini yoga like was the one constant thing that I knew. I started getting dreams of Yogi Bhajan yelling at me, telling me to become a teacher. And so I ended up taking teacher training during a very controversial time. And I ended up going with Rama because it was controversial, and I felt connected to the energy of Yogi Bhajan. And so they were the ones that were still, you had already done your training, but you and I were still already friends.
Yeah.
And I remember you going to your teacher's training and just being so like, oh, I can't wait to go. But it was just like, it seemed like every time I wanted to do it, like a big life event would happen where it was like financially, I just couldn't do it. And so finally, during the fire, so after the fires came, we had to move, all these things, and then COVID. And so finally during COVID, I was like, you know what? Because everything in my life was changing. But the difference between me and everybody else is I was already going through stuff for like over a year. Like my life was already like in this like weird, like I call it re-ravel, where you're like, the way that I explain it is like your life is like, you're like a beautiful sweater. And then all of a sudden this experience happens, and then you have to pull all the thread into a pile to be able to ravel you into this new, more beautiful like garment. And so I was in the middle of like the threads being pulled out of the item, whatever you would want it to visualize, and ended up just like finding, like really just making it a priority to take Kundalini yoga training. And in that training, I not only was a student of Guru Jas, which I would consider her my main teacher. And like, I remember like, cause her music really got me through the hardest time too, listening to White Sun, really like consecutive with her, like her, her transmission of the frequency and of the lineage was just like, it really kept me on a higher vibrational plane than and I was down here, but I was like, at least, could have been way lower. And I remember sitting in class on the last day, and she sat next to me because I was following her, always like reposting her stuff. She sat next to me in one of Hadi Jivan's classes, and she's like, I know you. I know you from Instagram. And I felt like I was going to like faint. She'd been teaching me the whole time. Like I'm just like quiet in the back of the class, like total fangirl moment. She's like, my daughter's having a birthday party next week. Do you want to come? And I was like, me? Because I was in this like space where everything was kind of like this. And then all of a sudden, and ever since then, like, I find her as like a good friend. Our kids are friends. She's my teacher. And just like literally not from this planet, this person. She's like definitely an angel here during this time.
I couldn't agree more.
So the fact that somebody of her spiritual, energetic level, like was like feeling, like seeing me, I think it like positioned me in a different way. It was really interesting because when you meet high vibrational beings like that, you kind of just have to like, and if they really see you, even if you're going through the craziest stuff outside, it's kind of like you reposition yourself in a way where you feel more goddessly because you have to be able to match that frequency to even connect with that person.
I have such chills.
And then feeling the humanness of her and realizing how cool she is. I'm like, oh my God, I love you even more. I didn't think it was possible. So I'm just like total It's amazing,
Yeah.
So that's the
And it
beginning.
really, it's such a testament to how our energy affects others and how when we are holding this high vibrational space, it does help others to feel that and step into that space. It kind of allows that to happen. And for
Hmm.
those of you who are listening and want to know more about who she's talking about, I actually was able to interview Guru Jas. Christine was actually the one who introduced me to Guru Jas. And I had her on the podcast, and it's true. Her transmissions are so powerful. I 100% agree. She's an angel on this earth right now that we all really need. And she's the singer of many of the songs that I share, White Sun. So that's just a little background on her, but it's so true. And I'm so grateful that you shared her with me as well, because she is something very special. Very special.
So special.
Yeah.
She's a very big part of my she's a very big part of my journey, like
Yeah.
in a
And
lot of different ways. And I want to cry right now because I just really love her.
no, I understand. And to watch this from the outside, because I saw you becoming closer with her and connecting with her, and then going on to the journey that you're on now, how interesting is that you were brought into the realm of music because she holds so much space there, and
Yeah.
it's so cool to see. And I would love for you to share more about that.
Yeah. So I started doing sound healing, and it's like I picked up the mallets. I don't know if for anybody who's not familiar, it's like you guys will have the link. I have an album on Spotify now of it's basically crystal bowls,
Yeah, I'm going to link
and
this in the I'm going to link it underneath this
yeah,
episode.
and I picked up the mallets to the bowls, and it was almost like magic just happened. And then I connected with. I mean, it was just like the transmission, and I started sending the mantras into the bowls. I
Mm,
played the gong for a while first, and during my Kundalini classes when I was teaching and stuff,
okay.
but like sticking with the Guru Jas story part of it, I ended up opening for White Sun 2 times.
So cool.
Yeah, and like, because Guru Jas wouldn't have it any other way. Like they wanted, I was a member of this members club in Malibu, and I kept trying to get her to come and perform, and finally she's like, I want to perform in that space. And she's like, but I'm not going to do it unless you're opening. So she made it very clear, because I don't know if anyone knows LA, like people love to overstep people and just do their own thing and just like forget the people who started things. And like Guru Joss was like, this isn't happening unless Christine is opening for it. And I think literally that's like the reason that I was able to do it, because people were like, forget Christine, she's nobody. I'm like, Guru Joss was like, no, she's gonna do this or we're not gonna do it. That's the only way it's happening. So we did it twice. It was very, very beautiful. And it was like, that was another place where I want to just share how powerful her, she was actually, come to think of it, when I got my teacher certification, and this is all coincidental, and Guru Joss is going to be like, why is your interview all about me? It's so funny. But when I got my teacher certification, I started teaching at this farm in Malibu. Like it's this it's a biodynamic farm, and it was like this cute place. And I got this opportunity, and Guru Jas has a little girl, and so did I, and they had like this little preschool at this farm. And I was like, why don't I do a class, my first ever class, at this farm? And Guru Jas just so happened to be there that day. And so she was literally at my very first class, and she posted it on her Instagram. And I was like, it was all coincidental. It wasn't like she was like, we didn't plan it that way. I was like, oh, actually, you want to come to the class? Yeah, I'm actually teaching my first yoga class that day. And it's interesting because it's just like divine synchronicities of like her being my teacher, and then seeing me, sending me all the pictures, and then also seeing me with the music. And like, because I would have these, I'm like obsessed. My whole thing with the Kundalini was the mantras and the frequencies and like how powerful the sound is. And so when I was able to find something that wasn't me really spinning my wheels, which was the sound healing, which we'll get into, but I just want to just finalize the Guru Joss conversation. It was just felt really, really, really good to be seen by her, because I see her as one, like everybody should know her music.
I know.
You know, there should be one person on this planet who doesn't know her music or listen to it, or both, because it's very, very tantric, and the fact that they are conscious of how the frequency that the music provides to help uplift your subconscious. I mean, you think you're just listening. It's the same thing. It's the same as what I'm doing. Like, you know, I play these instruments that are all attuned to 432. And I tell people, you know, the sound healing, it's the easiest form of meditation, because there's no prerequisite. Like, if your mind starts to wander, you just go back to your breath. But other than that, you don't have to try to think, not think. You don't have to do anything. You just lay there and you just receive the frequencies. You're doing a little sound healing now too, right? It's just for like first steppers that aren't ready for the Kundalini, because Kundalini is like a commitment. Like, that's like, some people, it's like a whole thing. Like, so
I want to share two things with you. This morning, I went, as you're sharing about Guru Joss, that everyone should know about Guru Joss's music. This morning, I actually have this group of beautiful women who are so open to all of this. And we met today on the beach. We chanted all of Guru Joss's sadhana mantras. And as we got up to the Mool Mantra and Sat Siri, I opened my eyes for a moment, because I like to take in the sunrise, but also be like very much within myself. So I just peek my eyes open. I look out, and there's an army of seagulls that are creeping towards us, a whole group of them, looking almost curious and also receiving of the energy. It actually was mind-blowing. I actually started to cry, because it's the language of energy. Like, no words need to be spoken. Any type of separation is completely dissolved. And it's like this oneness, no matter who you are, no matter what you are, whether you're a seagull, a human, a butterfly, whatever it may be, frequency is real, and it's something that we're all connected to. And it was the coolest thing to see this. And then by the time we finished, I played one of her gongs. It's just added to my sadhana playlist. And we opened our eyes and the seagulls were gone. It's as if they like got what they needed. And that was it. They went on with their day. It was so cool. And as you're talking about frequency, I had this interesting discussion with someone the other day who was sharing about the battle she was kind of having with herself about, and I don't really love this term, but I want to go there for a minute, spiritual bypassing, and how she sometimes thinks some teachers, for example, like how Abraham Hicks is always about shifting and getting into the frequency you want to feel. And she was trying to understand how that wasn't bypassing, and how, you know, she has to do like this deep, treacherous inner healing work, and it has to feel like work for her to heal. And I'm like, listen. And I think this is a testament to sound healing as well. But I was like, with Kundalini, you don't have to think. Just like you said, you don't have to think. You don't have to bring anything up. You can just do, and you're able to start healing that, whether you're conscious of it or not. And just as you started this episode saying that this is all through your experience with Kundalini, that's how I share as well. I feel like I've been through 30 freaking years of therapy just from my morning practice. And you start to be able to look back and say, wow, look at what I've healed. And without even doing it consciously. So is that what you feel like you also get from sound as well?
Yeah. I want to back up for a second
Yeah.
and like add to what you said about the spiritual bypassing, because this is also
Yes.
something that Guru Joss recently talked about in one of her classes. So back to sound and the power of our words, right?
Yeah.
Everything that we talk about gives it energy.
Yeah.
So anything that we're talking about, we're giving energy to. So, you know, we're here on this planet as students. And if we're sitting here rehashing out and giving energy to all the things that happen to us, what good are we really doing? Because like that's what the Kundalini yoga does. Like it recalibrates the whole energy inside of your brain, reactivates your neurological like systems, all of your bodies that are like physical and non-physical. So when you're sitting there rehashing, Guru Joss says, don't talk about the stuff that already happened. Don't give it any more energy. Don't talk about the person. Don't talk. I mean, it's not trying to push it back in.
Yeah.
It's about honoring the space. But like, you don't need to rehash things, because when you do, you're sending more energy into what didn't work about it, what didn't, you know. And if you tune into yourself and just do the energy and move the energy, you know, because like even what Yogi Bhajan says, even if, you know, the difference between doing and not doing something is time. And if you don't do anything, like when you're angry, if you give yourself the 72 hours and do nothing, things are still happening because time is moving this situation, whether you do something or not. So that's where with me, like I was a big believer of the spiritual bypassing, and there's things I do and don't believe about the Esther Hicks thing too. I see where she's coming from, and I do love her message of raising your vibration. But I believe that when you, like, that's what the fist of anger is for.
Yes.
Like having that moment and holding space for those things. If you add the prana and the movement and the and the mantra with those things that it made you angry, that traumatized you, adding the breath, the prana, and the movement to those things and honoring those spaces with, you know, with the Kundalini, you're going to get like many more years of forward movement than talking to somebody every week and rehashing and re-going into that space. That's my belief. That's just to add to that.
Yeah. I share the same belief, and I just want to be clear. Honestly, I love Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks, and that was a huge transformational vehicle for me. And how I recently saw it is how just like sound is a frequency, just like breath and mantra is a frequency, our thoughts are a frequency. So if we stay on the frequency of the wound, we're going to be stuck in the frequency of the wound. But if we're able to somehow, even if it's pretending for a moment, to feel a different energy, to feel a different vibration, by then embodying that vibration, we could help shift the entire frequency. And I know this, some people might be listening and be like, what is she talking about? But that's something that I visualized the other day, and how that works, because you don't want to stay in that space. And just like sound, just like mantra, our thoughts hold it too. And I feel very similarly to you, where our energy goes where our attention is and where our thoughts are and where our words are. And by using this really powerful practice that I feel so humbled to practice, to share, to teach, it just is so transformative.
Well, and you know, since we're bringing up these names of these other spiritual people, that, you know, let's bring up what Gabby Bernstein just said in her new manifestation book. And she says, choose again. And when you're feeling a low vibrational thought, we have the choice. Like I heard this in another thing. Also, the untethered soul, they talk about this, how, you know, we have this annoying roommate that lives inside of our head called our subconscious. And it's going to tell us all the reasons why we shouldn't do something, because it makes the subconscious, it's like a muscle, and it doesn't like to bend. So like it's going to tell you all the reasons why something won't work if it's shifting the thought process of the subconscious. Excuse me, a little tongue twister. And so when you feel yourself dipping into, like, that's a cool thing about being a human and in this like time, because when you feel yourself going into that like victim mentality or feeling like, why is this happening to me and all these things, you have a choice to choose again. Like, is this the thought that I really want to have about this? So you can now take that and you can choose like a better thing. Like, if you know, and that's where I do agree with Esther Hicks is the emotional guidance scale.
Yes.
Because like if you're feeling, you know, the lowest vibration is hate, and what is it, like hate and like death or something, and then it like,
Fear.
but if
I
you're
believe
feeling,
it's fear.
yeah, so if you're feeling grief and anger, you're actually supposed to like, you know, feel like it's actually a win, because anger is over fear. And so then even just going this much, I do agree with like the fact that, okay, I went this high, if this is all I can do, because there's no way you can go from fear to love. I mean, you can, but in a situation, it's very hard to, unless you're really in tune with your energy. But you can go to fear to like resentment, like it can go up that high, or if you're, but like that's why it's good, it's better to go from your higher chakras once you can get into the space of where you're going from, you know, intuition to frustration. It's like, you know, you can kind of like tither. Does that make sense?
No,
Are we
it's so
speaking like
true.
level 3?
No, it's so true. I should also link the emotional scale that Esther Hicks
Yeah.
shared as well, so everyone can look at that. But I remember when I was really struggling, I was going from like, it was interesting because I felt like I was fluctuating from like the bottom to the top in separate areas of my life. Like you said, you can't really do it in one circumstance. But when I was struggling with health anxiety, I was so in a fear mindset. And then in other areas of my life, I felt such deep gratitude, which is a really high emotion. And it's just like, how can I bring every area of my life to this space? And I have to say, like, I think a combination of 100% Kundalini, a really nice, clean diet, and infusing all of this energy from other spiritual teachers. And I would listen to Abraham Hicks all the time and just listen to that frequency of what she was sharing and what she was channeling. And all of that helps us to really shift.
And
So,
the
yeah,
gratitude is the key.
yeah,
Because if you can find gratitude in every, if you can shift a situation that happens to you into a learning lesson and then feel grateful, like that's what I've like, that's been a really big win for me and like my shift from victimhood. Because I feel like for a long time I was like, why is this happening to me? Oh my gosh. And I had this like plethora of like stuff. And then I had this download one day during my meditation that it was a relatability, because I'm a healer and I need to be able to be relatable to the people who come to me from a heart space. It's one thing to be like, I feel you, sister. I'm so sorry that you're going through that. But then it's another thing to say, look, girl, here's my personal experience of this. So having like 100 different things, like, you know, you too, having the things where you can look at somebody from your heart and say, I've been there and I feel you and I understand you. It's a really big thing. But
so
staying in that state of gratitude for every situation, even if somebody just mugged you in the park, feeling grateful for the things that you didn't get killed, you didn't, you know, things, you know, just, I'm not, those are like worst case scenario. But I'm just saying, like, taking even to the darkest thing, finding the gratitude of the lesson turns it into a power rather than a victimhood,
I
because
couldn't
it's
agree
the
more.
narrative.
It's so true. It's such a shift. But It's true, and especially as you said, like as a healer and someone who holds space, anytime I experience something challenging, I'm like, this is to help me. This is to give me more awareness. This is to bring me more perspective. This is to help me be able to have more compassion for others. It's so true. And it's all about the mindset and being able to stay in gratitude, but also from gratitude, I feel like there's this graduation to like surrender, which was a very big one for me. It took me many, many years to really be able to finally surrender and trust every single thing that takes place and knowing it's all part of a divine plan. But once you're able to get to that space, I think you're finally free. You're finally free from a lot. So tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about your journey from like holding these live events to birthing this beautiful album, which is so powerful that I want to share with everyone through this episode. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's talk about the album, which was a very beautiful labor of love.
Yeah.
We haven't really promoted it like it should yet because I moved to Mexico. So fast forwarding, like the day that it released was on the Lionsgate,
Yeah.
and I like this.
Oh, I have chills.
I didn't think about any of these things when all this was like, it was just like, yeah, that day, like I wanted it to be a double number. It was supposed to be 7/7, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be 7/7, and then just like that date just didn't work out. And I was like, okay, then it has to be 8/8 because it has to just because it's 2022. And if I'm going to put it out, I'm going to put it out on a power day. And I didn't think about it being the Lionsgate or anything like that. So I'm like, 8/8, that's the day. And then when I went to get my flights to Mexico, buying flights are so interesting because one day it's like $900, the next day it's like $250, and like the prices, I don't get it. So there was like one day that the price was actually reasonable, and that was on 8/8. So I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh my God, because I looked at it one day, the prices were one price, and then they went way up, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to just book this flight. It was the universe conspiring. So I ended up being it literally in the air on the Lionsgate while my album was like releasing, and shifting into literally my manifestation from that I had been envisioning for the last year doing the Apsa Hoa with Guru Jas.
Beautiful.
And which is something that you probably teach, and if you haven't, you probably will after this episode. So yeah, the Apsa Hoa is a meditation for your home. And I was actually staying with a family member for the last, what was it, a year and a half, because things were just so crazy with everything. And I was just like manifesting this home, and I envisioned it being in front of the ocean. I live on the ocean now. I'm in a small town by Cancun in the jungle. And yeah. So that's like the fast forward of the album releasing. But so I met this friend through a friend, John Krashna. He's amazing, and he has a foundation for veterans. And initially I wanted to teach Kundalini, but he's like, nobody's ready for that. Like, and that was like kind of like how I was always spinning my wheels. Like I always admired you because you were able to take the Kundalini and like people found how they were ready for it. For me, like I was teaching Kundalini, but like I feel like people weren't ready for, I don't know if I was too intense with like the power of it and not taking it like really, like I was taking it too deep. I don't know. Your frequency is perfect, and I see how you just like went out there and boom, like people who weren't even on a spiritual path, they're just like having a morning practice now thanks to you. That didn't happen for me with Kundalini. So I was like spinning my wheels. I'm like, but I'm a Kundalini teacher. What's going on? And so then once again, we circled back after I got the bowls. I was like, hey, you have to check this out. I gave him like a private sound healing, and he was like, "Whoa, I slept better than I ever slept. I can't believe it. We're gonna do this." So then so his foundation, the Sabot Foundation, I'll give you the links for it as well. They have their for suicide prevention, anti-depression, and for vets, mainly for vets and their families. Because the suicide rate for veterans is so high, and when you basically get out of service, you get like unlimited prescriptions and like $400 a month or something. Like, you know what I mean? It's like there's no plan, there's no support. It's like, here's a bunch of opioids, here's a bunch of you're in pain, okay, great. Like, you get like this laundry list of like pills. Some people take like 30 to 40 pills a day. Wow. So what John did after after losing one of his, he's got his whole story. I'll just go into the Cliff's Notes version, but one of his good friends, he was on this veterans racing track. Like, they used to do like racing and other things, and they lost one of their guys from suicide. And it just moved their whole entire foundation. They shifted it. And now they offer all sorts of alternative options for veterans. Wow. Non-pill. He's like, I'm anti-pill, because he sees, and they house veterans, they house their families, people who've lost their, loved ones from the wars. Like, they do all these amazing things for people that were in service, because literally, like, there's not a lot of support like that. It's just very bare minimal. Nobody really, there's not a lot of things that are very high end. They hold high end events for people, treat them they need to be treated like people need to see veterans and just honor them, but instead they're just their vibe towards veterans is oh, get out of my way. No, I'm not giving, I wouldn't give them money because you don't know if they're really a veteran. So, and then John actually told me, don't give people that are begging on the streets money. Give them food or whatever. They don't want food. They'll give you the middle finger if you try to give them food sometimes, because they want, the drugs. So, and he calls it self-medicating. So basically what he does is he works with CBD companies and all these different neurological lasers and all these things. And my sound healing really caught his eye. They do wellness. They call them clinical wellness. They're not really retreats. I call them retreats because it's basically you and I. It would be going to a retreat, but they have they use different language in that world. And they basically go and work with doctors and do, the MDMA and the psilocybin, and they go into intense weekends with doctors and just go through and take we would call it journeys. Yeah. They don't call it journeys, And so my sound healing is part of their integration because they have a list of things, because a lot of, even in mainstream, a lot of people that are doing all these journeys and all these things, they're doing it and then they're not integrating it into their world properly, and it just starts to deteriorate their brain even more. That's another story for another day. But so my sound healing is part of the integration for the vets. That was the first and foremost. Wow. We recorded it at a Dolby Atmos. We recorded it at the legendary recording studio, because he wanted everything to be really top notch. It was where the Beatles and Bob Marley and so cool. Madonna and anybody who knows who's been in music recorded at that studio, which is really powerful.
It looks so stunning when you were recording there, behind
it's so old.
So special.
You could just feel the energy on the walls. Wow. You could see Michael Jackson was in there, and all the legends. And then we finished it in a Dolby Atmos recording studio, which is you know, when you go to the movies and the speakers are like all over, and you feel like when the plane is flying by you, you feel like it's flying like actually by you. Well, we did that with the album. So if you have access to those type of like, you know, I think like Sonos has that, and like you can get it if you have like your headphones. Sometimes the headphones have the Dolby Atmos. But we got it like that so that like when I'm doing my guided meditations, we did it from the top. Because any stereo,
cool.
so when you listen to stereo, it's right here. It's coming like this way towards you, right? So the cool thing about the Atmos is you can move the sound like behind you in different parts of your, you know, spectrum. And so like the meditations we did like over your head. So it's like you're getting like this talking, like, you know, like I'm like your subconscious talking down on you. And just to make it even more powerful, because it like affects you even more. Like when I did the gong, we moved the gong when we were playing it back and forth. So you really get the effect in the different parts of your brain. Because, you know, John did some like research about how it's basically the binaural beats. You know, it's like taking the two sounds and then creating the third sound. And that's like how the binaural beats work. And, so when we did it, like we did it really high end, and we did it, you know, it was really, really, it was one of the most special moments of my life.
I'm sure it looked so special.
Yeah. I was in the music industry for a long time. I used to do concert production for a long time, and I never really did anything for me. Like it was always me doing like, you know, for other people. And it was a really special moment to be in the studio where everybody's like, it was like my studio time. And I was able to like create with the intention of healing all these people. Even my engineer, Enrique, he was with the engineer and producer for Juanes. He was like, Christine, like, he's like, I would leave my, you know, when I was working on your album, I would feel so different after I would leave the studio. He's like, I felt better. He's like, you know, I'm your first like person that you're healing, because he's like looping it and doing all his work on it. He's like, I felt so much lighter after working on your project than anything that I've ever done. And, you know, so
it's incredible.
Yeah, that was really, we're going to be pushing it more. I haven't had a chance to really push it yet, but it's on Spotify. It's on
that's
Apple
what I was
Music.
going to ask. Perfect. Okay. So
it's on everything.
It was just Apple Music. So now it's on Spotify too.
It's on Spotify.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I'll link both of this in the show notes for everyone so that you can enjoy, because it's so beautiful. And you infuse each of them with Kundalini mantras as well, correct?
Yeah. So when I play the bowls, I actually speak the mantras into the bowls. When you know, Yogi Bhajan's taught a certain way that you're supposed to play the gong, and I do my gong the way he was taught, that Guru Joss taught me, is like all the like very powerful Kundalini teachers. There's certain set of mantras that you play into the gong, and I do the mantra for protection into my bowls. And I do the mantras into my bowls as well, so that they can, you know, send out those frequencies.
I love that so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And now I want to ask you, how is life in Mexico? How is it? You used to live in LA area.
Malibu
right?
area.
Yeah.
Like Agora.
And how is this? How is the transition to Mexico life?
It's so amazing. Like there's certain things that you have to be very patient with.
Yeah.
Like the internet. Like because I pay really expensive internet here. I'm like, I'm just gonna get the most, but you know, there's just a different way of life. But that's like my, like, you know, my daughter always says, what are your sweets and sours of everything?
Cute.
So
I love that.
So I guess like the sour, starting there, would be like certain like speed that I'm accustomed to. And like, you know, for me, honestly, I haven't really felt, I actually I went twice. We came on 8/8, and then I ended up going back to LA to get my dog because I didn't bring her the first time, and ended up being so excited to go home. And I was only here for 3 weeks. I lived in LA for like 20 years.
Wow.
And my condo is oceanfront, like,
Beautiful.
and so I was like, I couldn't wait to get home. And it was one of those flight things again where I had to stay there for 10 days. And it was like the longest 10 days of my life. I was like, I just want to go back home. And like, it was like things were just like not working out again. And I'm just like, I'm just so over all of this, because everything on my way to Mexico, everything just started like flowing into like, I ended up even meeting Mayan elders, and I did I'm an artist as well. I do the crystal geode art, and I ended up doing an art piece with the Mayan elder who is also a Kundalini yogi, and learning about cacao ceremonies and the Mayan, and I'm living in the Mayan Riviera now, and I feel like all the guides, and like I'm just getting full chills. All the guides just really were like, you need to go to Mexico. And in a lot of ways, like this condo is like a unicorn condo. It wasn't on the market. I told my realtor what I wanted, and she's like, you're never going to believe this. There's a condo available, exactly what you want. The only building on the beach that accepts dogs.
I love it.
The only one in the whole town.
Yeah.
And I'm living in a little town. My daughter's dad and he's got a condo, like a penthouse here. He lives several places, but this is where he spends most of his time. And he hasn't been in the picture for a really long time. And I was like, it's time for him to connect with her. She's 8. They say the first 7 years are the most impressionable. She just turned 8. And I said that I had these downloads that now was the time, because she's already developed her core beliefs through the practice. She's actually a Kundalini teacher as well. She teaches on stage with Guru
I love it.
when we're in LA. And so I just got this message that it was time for her to connect with that side of her family, because I'm not close to my family. It's just me, and I didn't want to be an island anymore. She's actually with him right now, which is like so cool. And, it's just the beginning of a beautiful chapter for both of us.
So special.
We drive a golf cart in this little town, great. And my daughter drives the golf cart sometimes around town, and it like starts pouring on us, and we just laugh, and it's like 100 degrees, so it's still hot. It's raining and hot. And I don't know, there's just like, I'm holding sound healings here.
Beautiful.
That sell out every time. I just, I do them in this space. I had them clear all the furniture out, and I have a really big balcony that has a jacuzzi bathtub on it. I mean, it's a dream, and so I'm just, Mexico, I mean, here's a funny story about it. So I'm actually part Mexican. My last name's Lopez. I was raised by my mom, who was white and never learned Spanish. And I actually had a block because I had an aunt who kind of used to correct my word placement, and so I just stopped. I'm like, you know what, forget it. It's too much of a hassle. I just kind of blocked myself as a young child, because I was bilingual when I was a baby. And so it's an interesting thing, because I met this guy just at this like in Tulum one day, and he was speaking Spanish and English to me. He's like, what's your name? And I was like, Christine. He's like, oh, Christine Lopez. And he's like, your name's Lopez? He's like, are you Mexican? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, do you speak Spanish? And I'm like, no, I don't speak Spanish. He's like, how dare you? The nerve of you. You're living in Mexico. You don't speak Spanish. You're part Mexican. He's like, how dare you? I'm like, Wow, how dare I? Seriously,
Did that
like
clear
you're
the
from
block?
me. And
Block
I've
was
only been
cleared.
here for 2 days.
Wow.
But it was like that was the shake. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
like Guru Joss says how she met like a powerful, what is it? Like one of those Tibetan like
Monks.
lamas. And he took her head and slammed it on the table.
Oh my
And
goodness.
she's like, "Whoa." Yeah, she
Wow.
talks about it all the time.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that story.
Nowadays, if this would happen, you would do a lawsuit.
Oh my
But
goodness,
like,
yeah.
sometimes the
Yeah.
shake of feeling like completely out of your comfort zone and like, how dare you?
Yeah.
It like
Yeah.
sobers you up in a way where you're like,
Yep.
whoa, yeah.
Wow.
And that I think that was like the guides like pulling the block out because now I'm like speaking Spanish and like
Good
I
for
always
you.
understood it, but I never spoke it. Yeah,
Amazing. This is incredible. I'm
yeah.
so grateful that you're able to share your story, and I'm so happy to hear how all this aligned for you and just watching your journey from afar and seeing like you become stepping into the teacher space and then finding your way to sound healing and now being in Mexico and everything aligning. And I'm just so grateful for our connection. And I'm so happy to see you living in your Dharma and your truth. It's a
Thank
beautiful
you.
thing.
You've been a big inspiration to me.
Aw, thank
You
you.
inspire me with how you are able to just go in the way, and of course your relationship. I always tell you, you and Vinny are like so cute. Like you guys are so hilarious, and I'm always like relationship goals. Find a complete clown that's OCD. Everybody needs a clown that's OCD in their life. That's
That's
what
a
I
great way
want.
to describe him. I
I
love
want a
it.
complete circus clown that is like OCD, and like that's all I need in my life. Seriously. And you
I
got
love
it.
that description. I love that. I'm going to relay that message to him, and he'll probably love it and embrace it as well.
I mean, it's so true. He's like a total, like, both sides of the pendulum. It's so great.
Absolutely. He's that earth sign too, that's like taking care of the earth and cleaning up. Yet when you see him on Instagram, you think he's one way. It's very, and you had the pleasure of meeting him in person. We dragged him and his cousin to Gratitude Cafe. That was fun.
Mhm. He's like raising chickens and like
Yep.
fishing.
Yeah, he saved the chicken from the slaughterhouse.
I
So
know.
it's
He's pretty
it's
cool.
yeah,
And he's
yeah.
got like his little indoor like jungle going on in your house. Like I'm seeing, and you know what the cutest thing about you two for me is the low key like progression of his spirituality.
I
Like if
love
you were to
that.
tell him, he'd be like, "Wow, fuck that! I don't know, no way! Like that's not me! Like who are you talking about?" But then he's like low key like humming the mantras, and
Oh,
he's like, "Don't look
totally.
at me!" Oh,
Absolutely. He loves to randomly chant Wahe Guru.
hey,
It's
it's
so true.
ecstasy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for being the person you are, for being a friend in my life that played such a huge role in my journey, whether you're aware of that or not, just always being able to connect and talk all of these things and seeing so many things eye to eye in a time that is so unclear. Um, I love you. I appreciate you. And I'm so grateful that you set aside the time to come on here and share. As I said earlier, I'm absolutely going to tag everything I want the foundation for the show notes, as well as the iTunes and the Spotify link. So if anyone listening wants to tune into her beautiful, powerful sound healings and meditations, you could do so. But Christine, thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I love you so much. And I'm always here for you if you ever need anything. So
Thank you.
don't
It goes
hesitate.
both ways. Thank you. And we'll end together with the longtime sun mantra. May the longtime sun shine upon you. May all love surround you. And may the pure light within you guide your way on. Thank you, everyone, for being here and tuning in. And I will see you next time. Sat Nam.